What's up, Giants fans? Welcome to another episode of Giants Talk. I'm Cole Kuiper here with Giants insider Alex Pavlovic. We've got another signing in the world of the Giants. Luis Arráez is your opening day second baseman. We'll dive into this surprisingly controversial signing and more on today's episode. Before we get started, though, Giants Talk is presented by Mancini Sleep World. Mancini Sleep World is kicking off the year with their President's Day sale, where you can save up to $1,200. Mattresses start at incredible prices, like Beauty Rest Queen mattresses starting at just $299. Plus, you can get 0% financing for up to 60 months, including on Tempur-Pedic, with payments starting as low as $29 a month. To get started, visit sleepworld.com. All right, Alex, once again, here we are on the weekend debating an emergency podcast. We decided to wait and do our normal schedule, but the moves have been coming in a flurry.
What were you doing on Saturday night? Because I was like, I don't think Cole's usually busy, and I feel like he has something good to do. I'm just hanging with my kid, and I'm like, all right, I'll go, dig into Luis Arráez baseball savant page for half an hour.
I was on my couch watching the new Jason Momoa movie, doing almost absolutely nothing. It was good, though. Recommend.
We could have done this Saturday.
We could have done it.
We needed to let it percolate a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did, because there have been takes flying from the fans, and that's half the story to this for me. I was shocked to see how negative some of the reaction was to this.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was I think Twitter was very negative, which is what you would expect.
Yeah.
But I put up a YouTube video on Saturday, and I was reading some of the comments on Sunday, and it was like overwhelmingly positive.
Mm-hmm.
And you were there, so I don't know if people are just not as angry there. But all the Instagram messages I got from people were like positive. So I think this is it's a pretty even split of, he's polarizing. This is going to be one that he is somebody who he's defining trait is that he hits for average. And
I love that. You know me, justice for average.
You're into it in 2026 and really the last 10, 15 years, whatever.
Yep.
But especially the further we get, it's like not even, if they made baseball cards now the way they used to, they still do, but if they did it the way they used to and it was still such a big deal, I think there's a lot of people who'd be like, I don't even want to see batting average on that card. But that was, you and I grew up memorizing guys' batting averages.
You got home runs, you got RBIs, and you've got batting averages.
Yeah.
And what else do you need?
So it's an interesting one because you look at it and it's really easy to go, well, the WRC plus last year and the outs above average, and you can see his hard hit percentage, you can see his bat speed, you just see everything now. On the other hand, he's a 3-time batting champ.
Yeah.
Last year was a down year for him, and he hit 292. So I think this is going to be an all-time, everybody batten down the hatches if you're hosting a KNBR post-game show, be ready. This is going to be one that I think is just really polarizing. It's going to be like a mini version of the Belt Wars because it's just going to be – he's so defined in what he does well. And there are so many people who are so into that. But then there are so many other things he doesn't do well. And so it's really hard to be in the middle on this one. And having said that, I came down in the middle. So
I am really excited about it, but it's funny you compare it to the Belt Wars because the Belt Wars were all about what Brandon Belt could really do on offense. And the defense was just accepted there as a bonus, not even really part of the discussion. Whereas it is a big part of the discussion over here with this side.
But I think the thing about the Belt Wars too is that a lot of it was he's a very good player, but if you want your first baseman to hit 30 homers and drive in 100 runs, you're going to hate him.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit like, there was, there were things that you could point to and be like, he does this really well, but you could also point to things and be like, I don't like that. So, I think my main takeaway from this, and it was hot in the streets on Saturday, and angry people on social media, and but my main thought was just you and I have been very clear the entire offseason. We were totally fine with Casey Schmidt at second base. This is not how I would have spent my $12 million in the offseason. I think there were, but on the other hand, like I also see people tweeting like the Giants got worse on Saturday, and that's just
Mhm.
not true either. He has been, even if you say him and Casey Schmidt could be equal big picture offensively next year, which is not crazy. I mean, Casey's on the upswing and Casey provides some power and there are things he can do. He hasn't done that yet. Luis
Yes.
Arráez has done this over and over again. He's like 2022, 2023, if you want to get advanced. His WRC plus was above 130. It was 130 and like 131 back-to-back years. So he has been a valuable hitter. He is their best hitting second baseman currently. He does make the lineup deeper. There's no doubt about that. We will get to the defense because that's a big part of this as well. But I do think it's important to start there, that he makes the Giants a better lineup on opening day than they were the last time you and I recorded.
Absolutely. I really like this signing. I don't need him hitting for power. Just guys getting on
That's good.
base. How many innings did we see last year? How many games did we see where they just could not move runners? And I know his stats with runners in scoring position aren't the same as just his stats overall. I'm not going to get too in the nitty-gritty on that. But just a reliable bat up there to be getting on base sounds delightful to me. We wanted the Giants to improve across the board. That is absolutely the kind of signing that improves them. Would I have been fine with Casey Schmidt? Sure. But I'm also not going to be part of the whole, like, woe is me, what are they doing brigade that seemed to come out when this signing was announced.
Yeah, I just think if you're I can understand being disappointed with it. And again, like, this is not how I would have spent my $12 million. And
Yeah, mine would probably have involved like a really nice house on the beach.
Yeah.
And
Yes. If you yes, exactly. If you forced me to spend it on baseball, I would have gone to pitching. And I have, that's been my thing all off season. I'm a little surprised just that this is where they've ended up, because I think you could have tacked this on to whatever pitching contract and gotten slightly more certainty. You certainly could have spent this on a bullpen arm if you wanted to, made that group a little bit better. One thing I will say though is I see people going like, why him and not so-and-so that signed a month ago, or if you're going to do this, why not this trade that was made 2 months ago? I think they really, really thought they were going to get a trade done here.
yeah,
And I specifically, you and I have talked about Brendan Donovan for 2 months, and I think if you gave the Giants officials true serum, and some of this is also just me knowing things, obviously, like, I think they really thought a Brendan Donovan trade was going to get done at some point. And if not him, somebody else. And it just never happened. And they never got across the finish line. And so you look around here on February 1st, and there are certain guys who are not available and certain guys who have been traded elsewhere or have signed elsewhere. So to compare it to some of those, I don't think is fair to them. But I do want to quickly just run down, because we touched on social media impact. I think it's important just to note who he is. He's a 3-time batting champ. Giants have had 2 batting champs in their history, Barry Bonds and Buster Posey, who, oh, by the way, signed off on this. Lowest strikeout rate since Tony Gwynn in 1995. Struck out like 21 times in 620 at bats last year or something like that. 837 career OPS with runners in scoring position. As you mentioned, not as good last year, 696. But he does have a history of being someone that you generally like having at the plate with a runner on second and, needing to drive that guy in instead of striking out, which is what the Giants have done.
Can I pepper in real quick? Where do you imagine him landing in the lineup?
That is a good question. I think one of him and Jung-Hoo has to hit at the top. And just because otherwise it's just weird at the bottom. I think one of them has to hit at the top. I think Jung-Hoo, when he's right, provides more. That would probably be my preference. But Luis Arráez has a history of doing this. And I know the on-base percentage last year was down, but he's had some very good on-base seasons where if he doesn't walk, but also if you're going to hit 330, you're
who needs walks?
Yeah, who needs walks? Couple other things I put on here. I've heard good things about him as a clubhouse guy, just from people who have covered him, people who have gotten to know him. Only 28 years old, only a 1-year deal. It's, like I said, 12 million that maybe you would have bought a house. I would have bought an 8th-inning guy. But there's that old adage, like, there are very few bad 1-year deals, and I think that applies here. Like, it's not bearing them in any way. And then the last thing I'll say is just seeing him on the other side the last couple of years. He's really annoying to face when you're the San Francisco. Like he
Yeah.
gave Logan Webb a really difficult time the last couple of years, and was part of that lineup that got to Webb a few times where you're like, how did the Padres have 9 hits through 4 1/3 or whatever? Like he was a big part of that. He is an annoying hitter to face, and I think what'll please you and what will please people who are on the positive side of this is some of those innings where you're like, they just struck out in like 45 seconds. What just happened here? Like that's not who he is. So
Yeah.
yeah, so those are the positives. The negatives, the defense, negative 20 outs above average at second base the last 3 seasons. Only 10 starts at second base last year. Like I mentioned, the WRC plus was 104, so basically a league average hitter last year, even though he hit 292. That's because he does not have a lot of power, very little power, and is bottom quarter of the league in speed. So yeah, that's the rundown there. I think the main thing with the negatives, even though it's really easy to look at the advanced offensive stuff, I think the biggest issue is obviously just defense.
Yeah. And it's funny that, like, and obviously all Giants fans are different, but it's funny that this is this big of an issue when I've had people in my DMs for weeks now asking if Eldridge can just move to second to make this infield situation easier.
Well, that's a different level of crazy. But, the defensive thing, it's not, it is a big thing. And that's the biggest concern here. And that whenever he gets introduced this week,
Yeah.
if we talk to Buster or Zach or whoever, I think that's question number one is this organization that for years has tried to be pitching and defense and hasn't really gotten there the last few years, but we thought that's where they were headed. And Harrison Bader comes over, and our last podcast, we spend the whole thing talking about center field's better. Right field's better. And here comes the guy who is one of the worst infield defenders in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll shout out Justice De Los Santos, and he had Eno Saris on his YouTube show earlier today, and I think Eno said Logan Webb gets the most ground balls to second base
Great.
of anybody in the big leagues. So there are some defensive concerns here.
All right. I mean, that is rough to hear because we have been harping on defense on this podcast for years now, and we are coming, like you said, right off an episode celebrating the Giants getting better. But they are going to have 2 solid defensive options, 3 solid defensive options behind him, whether that is on the big league roster or in AAA. Well, how does that work for the other options we've been sitting on at second base?
Yeah, I think, that's one thing I'm really curious here is how he made it clear he wanted to play second base. And we started to see those reports a few hours before he signed too, that they're like, his representatives were putting that out there. There have been videos since of him taking grounders a second. I've seen all sorts of things like Ron Washington's here now, and that's great. Wash is great, and he will help him. But there's only so much you can do when you're talking about like a certain level of struggles defensively. So I didn't think he'd be back at second base. I thought he'd find a spot to be like a first baseman DH type. We've seen that like Wilmer kind of did that over his career, moved from short over further and further to where he's a first base DH type. So I thought that's where this was headed. I think there are ways to mitigate this. And you're asking about Casey Schmidt and Christian Koss. And what I would do late in games is whenever Arraez takes that last at bat, 7th inning or whatever, here comes Casey or here comes Christian Koss to, maybe a better fit at times. Like he was pretty solid defensively and a good runner. So, or has speed at least. So if Arraez singles to right field in the 7th, like there's your easy move. I think that's the move to make. I think there are other things you can do in terms of like semi-platooning a little bit. And certainly there are going to be other spots available. The fact that he can play first, the fact that you're comfortable with him as a DH. There's other ways to get him in the lineup if he's hitting well. But this is going to be the big question, and this is going to be, I think, a big thing for Tony is figuring out the balance here of how do you get this guy in the lineup because you feel good about it, and the front office feels good about it, and how do you protect your pitching staff? I just don't. It'd be really hard for me to imagine him getting to like a point where he's back to like league average. He's only 28, but I mean, last couple of years, down in San Diego pretty much decided. Like, we've made up
For
our mind about what you are.
to be a guy who's won like a batting title 3 times and still have your go-to like thing people know about you be you are wretched at defense, you have to be very, very bad at defense.
Yeah, and I don't even really have an eye test to go on because we've barely seen him out there the last couple of
Yeah.
years. So you're going off metrics, you're going off the reports. I do think one thing that was overblown was like I saw a lot of tweets late last night about like East Coast people going like, "Holy crap, Devers and Arraez on that side." I think Devers is going to be fine. So
Yeah.
they'll be fine there defensive. I think people have no idea. These are people who were not watching the Giants in the second half and have no idea he actually looked pretty solid. But at second base, there's a lot to figure out there defensively.
Yeah. Does this change anything else, I guess, roster wise, or other than a big who's behind Arraez question? Are we basically fielding the same team as we were when we talked last week?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks for Casey.
Yeah.
He was in line, and I think you can go back to last year and I think a fair amount of the dip in his performance, you can point to the fact that he was playing with a wrist that would need surgery in the offseason. I'll say it for like the fourth time. You and I have just been on the Casey Schmidt's totally fine at second base if that's your second baseman for this team train all offseason. And I do still think they're going to find a lot of ways to get him on the field. One thing I heard going back to December when I was asking about kind of Donovan and some of the other guys, Horner, some of the other guys out there, was they really wanted Casey in this super utility spot where, you get some starts behind Adames. You are the backup third baseman. We've seen he can play some first base and is a right-handed option there if that ends up being the case. And then some at bats here at second base as well. So one thing that I think is important to note here is there were something like 400, I wrote down here, 400 non-Casey Schmidt plate appearances at second base last year.
Oh, wow.
It's just a reminder that there's going to be a ton of at-bats at some point for other infielders. And one thing this does, which is similar to what the Harrison Bader signing does, is, Drew Gilbert now you might be looking at 150 plate appearances instead of 500 or whatever it ends up being. But somebody who has more success is going to get most of those plate appearances. But it also takes Drew Gilbert's better than the guy who would have been backing him up, right?
Yeah.
Like, Casey Schmidt is a better hitter than if most of those extra at bats at second base go to Casey Schmidt. He has a better shot than whoever else would take those at bats. So it does make him deeper, and I think in general they're going to be better off. But it is a bummer for him just professionally and somebody who we saw at FanFest a few weeks ago, he was excited. And then, for Christian Koss and Tyler Fitzgerald, I'm sure I'm going to see him on the grass at the start of camp. Like, those guys are now super utility. Spend some time in left field, maybe spend some time in all the outfield spots. Like, make sure you can play 6 positions, because if you're that last position player, that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah. Well, overall, if this makes the Giants peskier for other teams, if this makes the Giants, I don't know, more annoying to face, gives the Giants a different tool in the lineup that they didn't have before, I think overall this is an upgrade, and I'm glad the move happened. Obviously, I see what you mean about pitching would have been better, but if it was this or no other move, I like this.
Yeah, I think you get to a point of the offseason where you're like, we've been really adamant about upgrading second base, and
Yes,
this is kind of what's out there for us. For me, a lot of these things are like, and this was like when they signed Bader, that my first reaction was like, if you sign him to play center field, great. You're worried about offending your $100 million current center fielder, then you have problems here. And it turns out they're doing the right thing. They talked to Jung-Hoo Lee, he's moving to right field, and that's good. That's good for everybody. This is similar. Like, if you sign this guy to take any at bats away from Bryce Eldridge at the start of next year, I have a real problem with it. But
yeah.
I don't assume that's the case. I think from what I've heard, he's here to play second base, and if they play it the right way, this can be a solid addition, and just inch him slightly forward. This isn't a blockbuster. Like, Nico Horner would have been incredible, but would have cost a lot. CJ Abrams would have been incredible, would have cost a lot. But this inches him slightly forward. And I guess I'm just really curious now to see, which is my job then to relay to everybody else, like what is the full on plan here, and what so convinced the front office that they could overlook the defense.
Yeah. Well, it is February now. Pitchers and catchers will report in a few weeks. Spring training games that we can actually cover are right around the corner after that. So this is all getting real fast, and we'll see if there's any more moves up their sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, they're bumping up against it unless they want to go over the tax line. So
yeah,
it is interesting. Like when you look at the offseason now and just the guys they've added, not a class on paper that's going to scare anybody, but I do think a lot of those guys have been promised certain things and have come here to do certain things. And so there's not a whole lot of mystery on the position player side going into camp. I mean, you kind of need to figure out what you're doing with Luis Matos, and there's a backup catcher competition, but one of them's a Rule 5 pick. And like maybe there's a world where Tyler Fitzgerald looks awesome in February and March, and that's part of the conversation here, but not a lot of mystery there. And then they have their 5 starters, and for better or worse, those guys are their 5 starters. And especially the 2 newcomers, they are here to start. So I'd be surprised if there's anything. I think what we've thought was coming this whole time was just a second baseman. I'd be surprised if there's major changes after this.
I am still predicting. I'm waiting on that sneaky March Scherzer pick.
Yeah, he's.
I do not. We kind of touched on it last week. I do not imagine him watching opening day or opening weekend from a couch somewhere, no matter what he says.
Well, we are, like you mentioned, it's February 1st, and everybody says they're healthy on February 1st. And on February 15th, there's things pop up. So there will be other holes that pop up.
All right. Let's close the loop on the Harrison Bader signing. The signing became official once again, with all of us talking gleefully about it before the physical happened and all of that. No red flags this time, but the move made to make space, Kai-Wei Tang traded to the Astros.
Yeah, a minor deal. I thought, here's one big takeaway I have from this is, and I feel like we've talked about this at points, that they get to the point where they're squeezed and just have to DFA guys.
Yeah.
And so they were ahead of the curve on this one. And Kai-Wei Tang had the ability to bring you back at least a dude, like a guy who might be interesting, a 21-year-old catcher. He, Jansel Villarroa, I don't even know how to say his last name.
Roll that R.
And I'm not good with double R's. But he slides in as their number 27 prospect, according to MLB Pipeline. So they got something back for him.
Yeah.
Got international money back as well, which I think they will use pretty soon here. But main takeaway here is just Kai-Wei Tang. I think he had fallen behind too many guys in the bid to even be like the depth starter who shows up on April 24th or whatever. And I think there's some intrigue with him bullpen wise, just because of the strikeout numbers. And I'd be curious to see that. But yeah, beyond that, I just don't think he was going to start here anymore. And I will say also, I know I say this often, very, very nice young man. And I think he worked his ass off remember, he got taken off the 40-man.
Yeah.
And he went to North Carolina, of all places, to try to emulate what Spencer Rivens had done. So worked his ass off to get to this point, and I hope he turns into a good reliever in Houston, or maybe they'll let him start. We'll see what happens.
All right. Fresh look for Kai-Wei Tang in Houston. Farewell. And speaking of guys who will they start or will they hit the bullpen, Jordan Hicks is no longer a Red Sox. He got dumped. Probably one of the last places you want to end up as a major leaguer.
Well, it's a great city.
That's true. It's a beautiful city.
Beautiful city.
But he is a Chicago White Sox. He changed his sock colors.
Yeah, I will say, and it sounds like they're going to make him a reliever. He really, really wanted to continue starting last year. So this is one place where maybe he could talk him into it in camp.
That's true. It's like
Um,
you can kind of like look at me. I'm
yeah,
Jordan Hicks. Who else do you have here?
but he's been salary dumped twice in like 7 months.
Yep.
And this is an all-time remembering some guys, because the guy who Boston got back, the prospect, the White Sox had gotten him in a trade that sent Austin Slater to the Yankees. So we're on.
Oh,
So if this guy gets traded again, or if Jordan Hicks gets traded again, we need another old friend
yeah.
in that deal.
Yeah.
So we're just piecing it all together. But yeah, the easy thing here is, for all of the Twitter anger about the Giants front office right now, they did very, very well on the Rafi Devers trade.
They did.
James Gibbs was gone. Jordan Hicks is gone. Kyle Harrison. And part of this is just the Red Sox. I have no idea what they're doing. They make Kyle Harrison the centerpiece of that trade and then put like 9 starters in front of him. But Giants do not look like they're going to get burned on that one at all.
And can I just vaguely remember that when the trade happened, we were talking on this podcast about how, like, in the offseason, don't forget about this move. This might as well be an offseason signing. This is one of the ways they have to get guys.
Yeah, and that's the way the Giants view this as well. Like, you may not be thrilled with the offseason they've had, but you go back a calendar year and you add a Rafael Devers to that mix. So they've made a lot of changes, but it's an interesting one. Just, I think, more from the Boston perspective, that they've now traded half of the guys they got in that deal, and it seems like they're not going to get much out of the other half. I hope Kyle finds a way to succeed down the line and get a real opportunity. And they also, oh, by the way, saved all this money and then let Alex Bregman walk. So, like, it kind of didn't work out at all.
Yeah. Other remembering some guys, Daniel Johnson signed a minor league deal with the Mets. Alex, this name, despite being like last season, this was a hard name for me to pull from my memory.
Do you remember? I don't even remember what he did, but like his first 3 games after that, it was like, is this guy a season changer? Remember the hype about Daniel Johnson after like his first couple games? And then
the main thing I remember is that he's from Vallejo.
Yeah, I think he does a lot of charity work out there too. So we wish him the best.
Yeah. Best of luck with Miami.
Yeah.
Nice. We've got mailbag questions from listeners to get to. Before we get to that, Giants Talk is presented by Mancini's Sleep World. Every purchase is backed by Mancini's Rest Easy Promise, which includes a 365-night comfort guarantee where you can try your mattress for a full year. If it's not the right fit, they'll make it right. Free next day delivery and old mattress removal. Buy today, sleep better tomorrow with no extra cost, and a best price guarantee. If you find a better deal, they'll beat it. To get started, visit sleepworld.com. All right, Alex, more mailbag questions from listeners. As always, if you have any questions for us this offseason or throughout the regular season as we cover what's going on in 2026, feel free to send them wherever you can find Alex or myself, including the comments of his YouTube videos. We'll add them to our list and tackle them when the time feels right.
Yeah, I mean, spring training we're excited for it, but also gets a little slow. So we'll have time to mailbag.
Especially if you have spring training related mailbag questions.
Yeah.
But let's start off
of where do I eat in spring training? We will get to those.
Totally. Like I said, when it feels right, we'll tackle some stuff closer to spring training, some stuff closer to opening day. But the first question today is from Anonymous. In the offseason, how are the Giants when it comes to their players' offseason workouts? Do the Giants go over skills they want players to work on or formulate plans for players to follow? And if so, have changes in management the past couple of years impacted this?
I don't think the changes have impacted much because a lot of the people who are involved in that are like the strength people. Like Saul, who's one of their strength guys. I know he visits a ton of people in the off season and brings a plan to them. I think they can get like very targeted workout plans, especially. And yeah, teams end of year, you you go away with some expectation of what you're working on, some discussion about what you're working on over the off season, going in the next spring. And I would bet it's actually maybe more conversation this year than most, just because these new coaches, a lot of times, like new pitching coach, you want to call every one of your pitchers.
Yeah.
So you dive into it right away. Like that was how we found out that Jesse Chavez was the bullpen coach, because Sam Hent just mentioned it on his Zoom call and was like, we're working with the new bullpen coach. And we're like, oh, okay, new bullpen coach. So yeah, no, they're involved. I don't think that the big changes matter much. The other thing I would say here is almost every big leaguer now, and even minor leaguers, like they're all working at their own facilities in the off season, and those places have gotten really advanced, and so these guys are fine from that perspective as well. But yeah, no one's like texting Buster their BP video necessarily, but they, in general, the organization is helping.
Yeah. All right. From Travis, salary cap. Is it possible? What would that look like? How would it play out?
It depends who you ask on, is it possible? If you ask the Players Association, they will say never.
Never going to happen.
Never, ever. If you ask the owners, they will say, we hope to see it next year. Players would hate this. I think basically every sport has it. So this is the one that's held out, and we kind of see what's happening with the Dodgers and with the teams at the bottom. I think a cap would be accompanied by a floor, and that would be probably the only way you could maybe even like make this a conversation, is having that floor be high enough that players know in general they're going to do well. But that is like a line in the sand for the Players Association that just cannot be discussed.
Yeah, rather than what would the cap look like, for me, it's like, what would the lockout have to look like for that to be what comes out of it? Like, that's not a brief 2 months negotiation. That's like, we missed a full season of baseball and something happens and they finally land on that.
Yeah, that is a Giants talk turned into Sharks talk for 9 months, and now we have a cap.
Yeah. Do you remember the first month of the COVID season when Kruk and Kuiper were doing simulated video game baseball?
Do I remember? I was writing stories off of those.
And the Giants got blown out in the first game. That would be a full season of that if we're getting the salary.
I got to go find my game stories from simulated baseball games. Yeah, that would be that. Look, at least this time there could be other sports. So
that's true. That's true.
I could be like, do you need a third person at the Warriors game tonight?
Exactly.
No, I don't know. Well, but cap is a nasty word when it comes to the upcoming negotiations.
Yeah. That being said, with what is going on, they probably have more ammo than ever.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, like what's coming. I also think just like the deferred stuff, which I don't mind, but when 90, what percentage of Ohtani's contract is deferred? 90 something. I think that's going to be a big deal too, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about all that, unfortunately.
On a similar note, Stefan says, I had a question about all the long-term contracts being handed out to players in their prime years. Do you think that in about 5 years, when these players start to get older, like we're seeing with Xander Bogaerts, Giancarlo Stanton, Chris Bryant, and even Mike Trout, who seemed like a total lock when he was extended, that teams will become less willing to hand out these massive long-term deals? It feels like the back end of these contracts rarely provides the same return as the early years. So I'm curious whether you think front offices might eventually shift away from that approach. I guess the answer here is like, the front offices aren't doing it because they want these guys in their geriatric years. They're doing it because that's what it takes to get the big fish.
I do think we've seen a shift, though. We've seen the
this offseason is a great example.
The Kyle Tucker deal. Mm-hmm. We are seeing more and more guys being open to those just massive short-term deals, which teams look at in. You get like a guy who's going to put up a 6 or 7 win season. You're okay with paying a massive amount for for 2 or 3 years and not having to worry about him when he is. I think that's the thing about baseball that really I have a hard time with sometimes when I'm always generally pro player, but then I'm also kind of like, you look at like the Anthony Rendon deal and things like that, and it's like that there's no way out of that, and there's just there's no way out. These are all really long. We just got to a point where these are, I know there's some really long contracts in hockey and football, but the NBA like made some rules about how long things could be and how we know like what the max is there, and so they're doing very well. So
Yeah.
that'll be part of this. But I do think you've also seen the Giants kind of go like, well, we've handed out a lot of these now, and they're not the 12-year ones, but they're the 6 or 7-year ones.
Yeah, I mean, this whole Giants team in 5 or 6 years could be rough to look at age-wise.
There's a other side of this labor war.
Yeah. But it is interesting, but no, I don't think big picture. I think the top dollar guys, similar to the Mike Trouts, the Chris Bryants, when he was Chris Bryant with a capital K and capital B, they are going to command whatever deal they want that gets them the most money.
Well, the Padres offered Judge like 14 years or something like that.
Exactly.
We'll still see some of those, but I do think we're sliding in the other direction.
Betty asks, I've seen the Giants promoting MLB opening night, March 25th, and their Giants opening day, March 27th, as two separate celebrations/events. Do we know why they're doing this and what the presentation/celebration differences are going to be between the two games?
Well, Kruk and Kuiper are going to be at one of them.
That's true.
No, I hadn't seen this. I do think it's a little unique what they have with this Netflix deal, which is they're the standalone game, first game ever on Netflix. It's a night opener, which is very rare. I mean, they're never at home anyway, but when they always play that first home game on Friday at 1:00 or 1:40 or whatever. So
not only a night opener, but a 5:00, right? So weird lighting.
It's weird in every way, and then they're off the next day. So pretty smart actually to be like, hey, the traditional like a Friday day game opener at Oracle, that'll be there on Friday. But yeah, it makes sense. I think that first one's gonna be weird.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I mean, it's not exactly right because it is both at home, but it feels like opening day and the home opener, two separate big celebrations. The other one's just more about baseball across the country.
Yeah, and I also think, unfortunately, that first game I think is going to be not like for us, but for a lot of people, mostly about the Yankees.
Yeah.
So, or about like trying to teach their dad how to log on to Netflix.
I was at a brewery today and I was asking them, like, do you guys have a Netflix account for opening day? And they had no idea. They were like, what?
Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of that. And then Friday we come back, we'll have a pregame show. We'll have Kruk and Kuip and a normal, day game to start a season at Oracle.
I guess, Betty, the real answer is two opportunities to make a big deal of the game. Hell yeah. Double down. They are both must attend. I'm sure we'll have the Blue Angels at both. We'll go all out ×2 just because they have an opportunity. And I'm all for that.
5:00 on a weekday. Like, good luck to everybody.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I'll be there at like
traffic,
1, but good luck to everybody else.
Yeah. So, I'll be at Red's Java House around 1 too, Alex. So I'll beat traffic.
You'll be, start planning now if you're planning to go to that game.
All right. One more mailbag question today. This one from Roland. This is a fun one. At some point, could you ask Alex about his collection of Giants figures and memorabilia on the shelf in his camera background? And maybe the two of you can discuss your favorite giveaway items or collectibles that you've held on to over the years. I know you guys discuss giveaway items when they're announced prior to the season, and many of us listeners are collectors as well. Still trying to get my hands on the elusive NBC Bay Area Sports Giants Talk hat. LOL. What do you got behind you?
I'm digging to the back. I just think this one's funny. Gabe Kapler.
Kapler, and it looks nothing like him.
Very dark beard, Gabe Kapler.
Yep.
I this
Well,
is more like,
I'm gonna try to make this as audio friendly as
yeah.
possible. I'm gonna play by play this for our listeners.
I was just gonna say this is better like if you're watching this on YouTube, but I have a Brandon Crawford gnome behind me. These are just I've been covering the team full time since 2012, and my poor mom had boxes and boxes of stuff because I lived in an apartment in the city for a long time, and would just be like, "Hey, here's more stuff that I got during the year." And then we moved, and I have more space now, and so I took everything out and have everything behind me for people who watch or see the videos on our website. What's the backstory? I guess is just that. What's my favorites? That was part of this too, right? I was like looking at.
Yeah, I just turned around and grabbed stuff off my shelf. I'm not a collector guy. I don't really do the bobbleheads and gnomes. But I have some autographs up behind me. I have a Barry Bonds rookie card signed that I'm pretty happy with.
That's not bad.
Tsuyoshi Shinjo ball, one of my favorites when I was in Little League. I used to wear those orange armbands. I think I got a Will Clark ball behind me, Matt Williams, Robbie Thompson, just like the guys I rooted for when I was growing up.
Yeah, I think I like have a combo of like Kuiper and Tim Lincecum and what's back there? Let Pablo pitch and Logan Webb and guys that I've covered that I like, and then ones that I just think are weird, like the Gabe Kapler one.
I forgot this was behind me. This is a signed E40 bottle of Slurricane liquor.
That's your best one.
Yeah, this is a hangover in a bottle.
Well, to the question here about favorite giveaways, I think they've headed in like a clothing direction a lot the last couple of years. And
yes.
When I was a kid, we used to wait in line for bobbleheads and just be so thrilled when you got that box or when you got the gnome or the all the other random things here. So I'm always a fan of those because I think this should be mostly for kids, and I like those. And I think that some of the clothing stuff they've handed out is really cool. I also just think it's a little tough sometimes because it's usually one size fits all.
Yeah.
So,
see, I love the clothing stuff. And I have some friends with kids, and I'll show up at my friend's house, and me and his kid are wearing the same Giants Aloha shirt.
There we go. We're at the same game. So
exactly. Yeah. I wear my my City Connect fanny pack constantly. That might be one of my favorite giveaways they've ever done. What else? I think I have all of the Aloha shirts they've ever done in my closet.
I think there's some good stuff this year. Like I saw the Logan Webb football jersey, makes a ton of sense.
That's fun.
So there's
Anthony Garcia showed me the Pablo Sanchez backyard baseball bobblehead. That'll be very cool.
Special event though, not a
gate giveaway.
Not a gate giveaway. But yeah, in general, I'm partial to the bobbleheads and what was the best was the replica rings when they were good.
Oh, those were fantastic.
Those were really good. But
can I do a bobblehead hot take?
Yes.
I think I stopped collecting bobbleheads as a kid when they started getting really detailed. I liked the squatty aesthetic of like the old school bobbleheads. It almost looked like the Bob's Big Boy guy.
You don't like this very crafted beard for Gabe Kapler?
No. Yeah, too much detail. Because they would just like adapt that squatty mold and make it Barry Bonds. Make it Willie Mays.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I don't know, they're trying too hard, which is like a crazy thing to say about a sculpted art piece, but I liked the original squatty guys.
We haven't done much promotion stuff for this year because it kind of came out. I think it was first announced at the winter meetings.
Yeah.
Which was a busy week for us. But there's a media day coming in March, and we'll go through everything, maybe rank our favorites. And
absolutely.
I thought it seemed like a pretty good list this year. So
yeah.
And I the stuff they did last year, like some of those lines were out of control. So I guess that's where even some of the things where I don't really like fully get it like crushes.
Well, the thing you don't get to see because you're not out in the bleachers is the people who after the game go and roam and pick up all the ones people left behind. And you'll see a guy with, 8 bobbleheads just carrying all the boxes out, trying not to spill them.
I didn't know people actually left them. So
yeah.
I will say when we were kids, I'm the oldest of 5 boys, and like we'd go to games, and the third son would always sell his. he would always, there's always somebody who's like trying to buy him, and he'd sell it for $20 or $40 or whatever. And he was the smartest of all of us, because I have like 7 Mark Kotze bobbleheads at my parents' house. I think he sold all of his. So
little entrepreneur. That's not fair.
But good question. And there's more around here somewhere in boxes. And
this reminds me, I should probably be more aware of what is behind me when I do this this podcast.
Yeah. But we love the promotion stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, with that, we'll call it on today's episode of Giants Talk. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Go ahead and give us a review if you're a Giants Talk fan. Send us your mailbag questions if you have them, and continue counting down with us to opening day, to spring training. It's all right around the corner.
Yeah, this goes up on Monday morning, and the next Monday I fly to Scottsdale. So we're
right. We're here, baby.